Hello, everybody, and welcome into a first ever episode of the Reggie Chatman Show. I am your host, Reggie Chatman, and to be clear, this is a brand new show that I'm excited to be able to host. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Reggie Chatman. I am a sports reporter here based in Atlanta, Georgia. I work for 11 Live TV, so I cover any and everything that goes around in this city. So that means the Falcons, the Braves, the Hawks, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Kennesaw State, all of the above. So naturally, I've been doing it here for 4 years, so I've just wanted the opportunity to be able to have a more open forum to just kind of talk about everything that's going on in the city. And the basic idea of this show will be I'm trying to do it at least once a day, 5 days a week for sure, but we're hoping for once a day to do this show. And it's really an awesome opportunity to be a little bit more loose, kind of talk about what's going on in the area. But it'll probably be a shorter 30-minute show every day. And the whole goal is to do 3 segments every day. The 3 big stories of the day. The first 2 will be like the major stories, and then the last thing will be a lanyap segment where I kind of choose a little thing that's extra, maybe something that's not as prevalent or something that people are not talking about as much. I want to have the opportunity to be able to talk about that sort of thing. Lanyap, it means a little something extra. I originally my first job was in Louisiana. I went to LSU out of school, and then I got a job at the ABC station in town. I spent a lot of time in Louisiana. My family's all from Louisiana, so naturally I've got some of that Louisiana connection, and lanyap is something they talk about out there. So I wanted to make sure I brought that to this show because Louisiana means so much to me in my progression and my life and who I am as a person, but also my professional career as well. So thank you guys so much for joining on today's episode. I'm hoping to get this show bigger and better every single day. We're going to try and have guests on once a week as well, but we're hoping to try and get this podcast show out almost every single day. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Okay, all right, so let's bring this episode, let's begin the episode with really what's going to be an incredible weekend. It is Friday, October 17th, leading into a massive college football weekend, not just for our area teams here, but for a lot of the teams throughout the country. But on today's episode, we're going to talk about Georgia, their big-time matchup versus Ole Miss. We're going to talk about Georgia Tech. They've got a massive matchup as well. Georgia Tech, the only undefeated team in the state of Georgia. And then our lanyap segment will be a little bit of surprise, but if you're a fan of soccer and Atlanta United, then it'll be pretty clear what we're going to be talking about. So, all right, let's just begin the episode with this. Georgia versus Ole Miss this upcoming weekend, a massive matchup in the SEC. Georgia 5-1 on the year, while Ole Miss comes to town to Athens, Georgia, at a perfect 6-0 record. And you know it's a big-time game when you've got College Game Day coming to town. I'm not really understanding why Jelly Roll is the guest picker, and that's no, I guess, beef at Jelly Roll. It's just I don't really understand it. I think that College Game Day for a long time used to bring like the best super fan. Now it's starting to feel like they're just bringing on people that have something to sell. I mean, it is what it is. I get it. The money is there. But man, you would think at a certain point, maybe the bigger issue is what people talk about on the timeline. They keep going to a lot of the same schools. I've got no problem going to Georgia. This is an opportunity for me to be able to go on Saturday ahead of that game. But yeah, I don't really understand it. But that's not really the point here. You know it's a big-time game. You got some big-time names. Georgia has Kirby Smart, of course, leading the way, while Lane Kiffin will be on the other sideline. 2 of the bigger names in coaching in the entire sport. Georgia, of course, one of the most massive brands in all of college football, while Ole Miss has become a bigger brand as well under Lane Kiffin and his leadership. This is going to be a collision course, and it feels like the last couple of years it has felt like a big game. And just to put it in perspective, right, there hasn't been a top 10 matchup inside of Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia since 2023. The last time it happened, it was the Georgia versus Ole Miss game. The exact same 2 teams. And, of course, last year had a little bit of, I guess, beef, or there's a little bit of extra going on with the matchup in Athens this weekend, because last year these 2 teams faced off at Ole Miss, and they ended up beating Georgia on their home field, and the fans rushed the field. And so head coach Kirby Smart said that he's not really thinking about any of that revenge factor, but I mean, how can you not, right? If you're a player on that team, and that was one of those those rushing of the fields where people were like, well, maybe we should stop doing this. But at the end of the day, that's neither here nor there. The matchup this weekend is going to be awesome. Sanford Stadium is going to be a great environment. And Ole Miss versus Georgia, the biggest game on the schedule. So that's what we're going to lead with. So I'm just going to get straight to the point here. I think Georgia wins this game, and for a good reason. Everything for Ole Miss has been set up to get to this spot, right? So look, just for an example, right? Growing up, I like to color, I like to draw a little bit. My mom would always be like, hey, like, here's how you do it a little bit better, right? I would kind of draw outside the lines. I'm sure that a lot of you guys have, as children did as well. Draw out of the line, and my mom would be like, no, make sure you stay in the line. Just kind of trace around the edge of the thing that you're coloring and then color on the inside of it, right? I used to also trace cars out of this book because it made me feel like I was, I guess, a good drawer. Yeah, that's not really necessarily the case. And that's kind of what I learned over the course of my time, right? Once I got a little older, I talked to my mom about it. She's like, yeah, no, it's, you were fine, I guess, but I just didn't want to mess up your confidence, right? Like, I didn't want to tell you 100% things were going to go perfectly. I wasn't going to tell you were the best thing in the world, but I also wasn't going to tell you that you couldn't be possible to be better, right? I didn't want to, I didn't want to be somebody that didn't show you how to make it and do it better, right? And I only use that example because it feels like that's the exact same thing that's what's going on with head coach Lane Kiffin and his quarterback Trinidad Shambliss, right? I think Trinidad Shambliss has been a good quarterback so far to start his career at Ole Miss. Takes over for Austin Simmons, who my buddy Sudu told me before the year is an absolute whiz kid. He's a guy that graduated early, was supposed to be the next coming of the quarterback position at Ole Miss. I mean, Suda was telling me, he's like, this kid probably should be starting over Jackson Dart. I don't know if he said that exactly, but he said he might be better than Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, of course, in the NFL right now with the New York Giants playing well. So Austin Simmons getting hurt opened up the door for Trinidad Shambliss, who just brings a different mindset, a different kind of point of view from the quarterback position. The guy can throw, but it's his legs that have become such an offensive weapon for this Ole Miss team. But here's the deal, and here's the reason I think that all of that's going to kind of come to an end this upcoming weekend in Athens. You know how I mentioned that everything's been kind of worked out for them perfectly, and you're telling this person, oh, everything's going really, really well. He's never been on the road. This team 4-0 with Trinidad Shambliss starting these games. He has obviously looked very, very impressive. This is not me taking anything from him. He's leading the SEC in yards per pass and other categories as well. The kid is an absolute star, but he's never played on the road, right? His games he hasn't played on the road, right? It's a little bit different in the SEC when you go on the road. This is a former D2 quarterback that has never been in an SEC environment. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of great SEC environments. Georgia has one of the better ones. It's not the best, and I may be a little bit biased on that, but I've been around the SEC. I think LSU, where of course I went to school, is the best environment, not only in the SEC, but in college football. After that, Tennessee is a place where it's awesome there. I love the environment at Tennessee. I love what it looks like. I love what it feels like. That crowd has that, I guess it's that energy of like, we're a school that not necessarily is going to always win. So when they feel that opportunity to win a game, it feels like an avalanche. I'm stealing that from Josh Pate, who said that. It feels like an avalanche once that crowd gets rolling, right? It is awesome. Sanford Stadium is up there now. And I've been covering this Georgia team for the last 4 years. And for a long time, I always used to say that Sanford Stadium was boring. It wasn't a place that it felt like there was a lot going on. It wasn't necessarily loud. It didn't feel like it had any kind of aura or crazy energy in any of these games. And I think a big part of that is just because of the fact that their old schedule used to be pretty boring, right? Before they had this East-West merger in the SEC, a lot of Georgia's schedule was kind of mid, right? You're playing a lot of the same teams. You're seeing the Kentuckys and the Missouris and the Florida once they've been down. I mean, obviously that game in a neutral site. But my point is like you're seeing a lot of these teams that you didn't have to see Alabama every year, which was obviously like the main killer thing. And when they would see Alabama, they would lose, right? In the SEC title game the last couple of years, of course, they got that national championship game over Bryce Young and Bama a couple of years ago. But my point is, the home field environment at Sanford Stadium, for me, when I got there 4 years ago, I didn't think was all that impressive. Things have changed, though, over the course of the last couple of years. Once they started adding some bigger games, Tennessee, I think, getting better has really contributed to that environment there, because I think for a long time these Georgia fans maybe took it for granted just how dominant their team was, because they were just going up against talent they could kind of rush through, and then at the end of the year they'd play Alabama or somebody else in the SEC title game, right? I think things have changed, though. There's big games on this schedule now. Tennessee, 3 years ago when they came in as the number one team in the country, that game was electric. That was under the lights. It was a night game. It was raining. That was loud. The Arkansas game, they were top 5 or top 10 in the country when they came around in, I believe, 2023, and that was probably the loudest environment I've been in at Georgia. That one was awesome. The Alabama game earlier this year was electric. Perfect day inside of Sanford Stadium out in Athens, Georgia. I remember walking into that stadium and looking around and just feeling like, this is special. This is big. And I think they've done a good job of adding certain aspects to it. They had the little Pix Mob wristbands that used to light up with what was going on inside the stadium. They had obviously all the lights and stuff going on. They had used special music for each one of the third downs, which if you go on TikTok, you'll be able to see. It was which was that TikTok sound. But my point is that Athens has become very impressive as a site, right? They do a really good job with the with fireworks and everything else, the pyrotechnics, and the fans are actually into it when there is a big game. And I get it. Things have changed, right? There's such a good viewing experience at the house, right? You know what I'm saying? But if you're going to these games, and especially if you're going up against another team that's big, and Georgia now has big games all over their schedule, there's going to be some awesome environments. And this weekend, I think, is going to be absolutely insane. And I only bring that point up because head coach Kirby Smart asked for it to be. In his press conference on Monday, which I was there, the first thing he said out of his mouth when starting to talk about the game this upcoming weekend was he needed his fan base to be the best it's ever been. And the reason for that is he gives a lot of credit to head coach Lane Kiffin. Of course, in college football, the head coach obviously can talk to their quarterback in the headset, the green dot helmets, to be able to communicate the play, but it also offers an opportunity for the coach to be able to let him know, all right, here's the play, here's the another option for the play, here's what you should be looking for, a little tips and tricks and stuff like that before he gets to the line, and eventually the mic cuts out, right? And he was explaining that Lane Kiffin is one of the better coaches, including his staff, in giving his players and his quarterbacks all the different things that they need to know heading into a play, and they end up being in the correct play most of the time. For example, if he comes out to the line, they get to the line early, Trinidad Chambliss is going to be looking out there, and so is Lane Kiffin, who's going to tell him, hey, check to this play based off of this look that we're currently seeing, right? And for that reason, Kirby has challenged his fan base to be louder and do it earlier, all in the effort to make sure that communication between Lane Kiffin and Trinidad Chambliss is a little bit more difficult. And I'll tell you, when it gets loud inside of Sanford Stadium, you can feel it. It is loud. I think the only issue with Sanford is they've got that, I guess, the far side where the speaker is and the big screen is. A lot of the sound kind of leaks out through there, but I think it's plenty loud, especially in that little bowl, and especially when you're out on the field. That place is going to be rocking on Saturday. And I think for that reason, it's going to make it really tough on Trinidad Chambliss. This is the SEC. This is a different atmosphere. This is a different beast. You know, this is his first time going out on the road in the SEC. It's going to be different. It's going to feel different. Having to run the offense, having to look around, having to see playmakers, you know, it's going to look different. It's going to feel different for him. There's going to be an elevated heart rate. Can he bring down his heart rate in the biggest moments to be able to make sure that he can win the game for Ole Miss and make the right plays? I mean, I just can't. I don't think so. I don't think he's as good as a passer as other people that can kind of come in and handle this, right? So for that reason, I'm going to pick Georgia in this game, and especially because history tells us that we should pick Georgia at home, especially these top 10 matchups. Kirby Smart 10-0 at home in top 10 matchups inside of Sanford Stadium. Before they lost to Alabama a couple of weeks ago, they had won 33 straight games at home. This team never loses at home. It was the longest winning streak in all of college football before it got broke to Alabama. And I think Alabama's a better team than Ole Miss right now. I mean, I think we'll get a chance to learn about that a little bit later in the year. But Yeah, I think Alabama's a better team. I think they've got a better quarterback that, I guess, of passing the football to get them off the field or get them down the field on third downs. They were like 8 of 13 on third down. That was like an all-time virtuoso performance. And even then, it was mostly all in the first half. The second half, Georgia's defense kind of figured out it was the offense that fell, I guess, behind that made it so tough to come back, and they just couldn't come back. Which is also bucking a trend of what it has kind of been for Georgia over the course of not just this year, but going into last year as well. When you look at their schedule, dating back to last year, and I think it was the Texas game last year on the road, which we all remember, an electric performance where Georgia got up for that game. They went into Austin, handled business on an F1 weekend in Austin, and won that game. The first of 2 times beating Texas that season. That was a game where they got out early and never looked back. The defense looked good. The offense looked good. They started fast. They never trailed in that game. From there, every Power 4 game after that, since then, last year, which was like November 4th, they trailed in each of those games or had to come back in each of those games. A lot of those games, they actually went down early. They let the other team score first. You can't do that against Ole Miss. Right? Last week against Kentucky, or when they played Kentucky, was the first time that hadn't happened, and the first time I'd broken that streak. Of course, we remember that Alabama game. They fell back early. They weren't able to come back. The Tennessee game, which I was a part of in Knoxville, was absolutely insane because they were down double digits in that game, and they lost. It's just a different beast. Ole Miss can score, and they're going to score. They've got a top 3, top 5 offense in the SEC. They score a whole lot of points. The offense has looked good with Trinidad Chambliss. But boy, man, if Georgia comes out slow like they have, then there could be a problem. I don't see that being the case. Georgia gets up for big games. Kirby doesn't oftentimes show or have a feeling or let us know that something is going to be tough or that's going to be difficult or that a game is bigger. This one, he knows that it's big, and he said it's big. If he's asking for his fan base to be involved, he is looking for every single thing he can do to make sure that his team tries to come out with a massive win at home versus Ole Miss. And another reason I think that Georgia's going to end up winning this game is just because I don't think that Ole Miss is as good as their top 5 ranking actually is, right? They are way up there because they beat an LSU team. Of course, I get it. I went to LSU, but I can be honest about them. Their offense is inept, right? The defense is very good, but the offense has been inept. Of course, they're also at home, so that helps Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss, right? So they beat LSU. Disappointing for me, but who cares, right? But then they really pull out a win versus Washington State. Washington State is not good. They're not a good team. I mean, they scored the same amount of points versus LSU as they did against Washington State. And if it wasn't for some late-game defensive heroics, Ole Miss could have lost that game. Washington State missed a field goal in that game. Ole Miss had lost a turnover battle in that game. A lot of reasons to believe that, obviously this is a much bigger game, and so you can get up for this. You can't get up for every game, obviously, but, I mean, you can't struggle against Washington State. You should be able to roll out your hats. I know people that say that's not supposed to be the case. You should be able to roll out your hats at home and get a win against Washington State. That's how I feel. So, with all those reasons in mind, that's why I believe that Georgia's going to get a big win on Saturday. They are favored to win it at home, obviously. But the line's not that big. And for good reason. Ole Miss is a good team, but they're not Georgia. And they're definitely not Georgia at home. For that reason, I'm going to go 28-21. Georgia gets a massive win over Ole Miss. I think the line is 7.5, or maybe it's 6.5. So I guess they don't cover. But a win is a win. And a win in the SEC is huge. This is a team, I think, that just never says die. Lane Kiffin just does too many things, whether it's the 4th down conversions or just the team making mistakes or losing focus, that I just feel like a button-up team like Georgia, at home, big moment, big time, all eyes of the college football world on them, are going to pull out a win at the crib and get it done and move to 6-1 on the year, as Ole Miss will drop a little bit. Good team, but They're not Georgia. Speaking of good teams inside the top 12, speaking of teams that have the opportunity to make the college football playoff, the only undefeated team in the state of Georgia, Georgia Tech, headed on the road to face off against Duke this upcoming weekend in an ACC matchup between a Georgia Tech team that is ranked in the top 12 and a Duke team that is not ranked. But this looks like a game that people think is going to be a trap game. I think when you look at what Georgia Tech has done over the course of this year, they've had multiple comebacks similar to what Georgia's done this year. They head on the road to Duke, a team that is actually favored to beat Georgia Tech this upcoming weekend. And I think that is, I don't know, I think that a lot of that, and look, to this day, I don't understand how Vegas figures out what their odds are and stuff like that. I think a lot of it's based off of where people are betting. And I think that the trendy bet would be to pick against Georgia Tech out on the road, who just a couple of weeks ago had to go to overtime to beat Wake Forest in a game that was definitely a struggle for most of the day. But here's why I think that's not smart. I think Duke's going to be fine. They're 3-0 in conference. But here's why I think that's not smart. Georgia Tech, after that Wake Forest game, went into the bye, came back. Virginia Tech over the weekend, a game that I was at, and it looked different. It just looked a lot crisper. A lot of the problems that they had in their other road games, or really any of the games that they've had against Power 4 competition, is they would mess things up by themselves, right? That Colorado game, they had turnovers on each of their first two or each of the first three drives. They definitely struggled, had to come back as well against Clemson, pulled that one out as well. I just don't. They came back after the bye facing off against Virginia Tech this other weekend and just looked super crisp. No turnovers. Haynes King, I think, went 20 of 24. Passed the ball well, ran the ball well, of course. The offense was showing off the different running backs that they have. Jamal Haynes is their superstar, but they had other guys toting the rock and finishing well. I think the defense was flying wild and they looked good. I think this is a team that with head coach Brent Key, they are so, I guess, they do so much work in making sure they get the job done the right way. I mean, at the end of the day, Brent Key has coached under some really good coaches, and he recognizes what winning looks like. And he's done a really good job so far, especially in the matchups against teams that are ranked in the ACC. He is most famously known for having a much better record against ranked ACC foes than against unranked ACC foes. And I think for that reason, people are thinking that maybe Georgia Tech can't go out on the road and get the job done. I wholeheartedly disagree. This team looks different. Haynes King looks electric. He's been playing really well. And I think this is a matchup that actually works out really nice for them. If you're going to go out on the road, you got to be able to run the football. Georgia Tech, of course, one of the best rushing teams in the entire country, led by Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, and the boys. But, I mean, look, man, Duke's defense in the pass game is terrible. They are not good at all. Like in the hundreds in playing defensively against the pass. And I know that Haynes King gets all the love because of his ability to run the ball. And this offense gets a lot of love because of their ability to run the ball. But boy, Haynes King is efficient throwing it as well. His completion percentage over 70%. He's a 71% completion percentage, which is top 4 in the ACC. And if you take, and it's really, or it's top 5 in the ACC. If you take out his teammate Aaron Filer, who played for him for a little bit, he only had 24, I think, 28 attempts. Then he's top 4. And if you take out the freshman from Pitt, who has just under the half of the pass attempts that Haynes King has had this year, then he's top 3. 71% completion percentage. He gets the ball to his guys. They move the ball around a lot. And that's a pass game that can't stop anybody. Here it is. The pass rank is ranked 116th in the country over at Duke. I think Haynes King and this offense is too good for that to be the case. They're fine in their run defense as well. Not great. They're fine. Middle of the pack in the ACC. Kind of lower in the entire country. But I don't see any real reason why they wouldn't be able to handle business at Duke. I really don't. You know? Brent Key 9-8 versus unranked ACC teams after the win over Virginia Tech. A game that was not nearly as close as what the final score said. I mean, it was a 15-point win. That's a double-digit win. It really should have been more than that. If not for a Hokies touchdown with like 5 minutes left in a game that, from inside that building, never felt that close. Right? I think Virginia Tech did some good things. They tried hard. They scored in certain moments when things would go right. They could pick up a first down or some sort of flag would happen. They would kind of get bailed out. But it never felt like they could stop Georgia Tech. It just always felt like, hey, at any point, they're just going to run the ball down their throat. They're going to pass it. They're going to move down the field. They're going to score and extend their lead again. At least maybe they'll get a field goal out of it. And they always did. They always did. That game was not close. That game was not close. I think Georgia Tech's playing too good right now. And I also honestly just feel like it's kind of a team of destiny. Which, I mean, it sounds dumb, but it just feels special in and around that program right now. It really, really does. Incredible, incredible crowd versus Virginia Tech. A massive crowd of more than 50,000 people on hand. It was the biggest non-Georgia game in I think almost a decade. I think 2018, 2013, somewhere around that range. I mean, it just feels special right now on that campus. When you walk around, there's a different energy. Brent Key could inspire anybody to do anything. You want to fight for that guy. He's a good head coach. It feels big when he comes out there to that microphone. It just feels special, right? You go on the road and beat Colorado in week 1 in a game that you probably shouldn't have won. You get that one done. Clemson, you get that one done. And their schedule just sets up so nicely for them to be able to run the table and get to that Georgia game and snap that streak potentially and punch their way to the college football playoff. This team just feels like a team of destiny. To me, at least. That's what I feel like. I think everything has kind of come together perfectly in a way they needed it to come together. Haynes King is back. He's healthy this year. I think they could have had a lot of the success last year if Haynes King didn't get hurt. And I think Aaron Philo does a good job. He was just a freshman. This team is deeper this year on both sides of the ball. That running back room, he said, yeah, this is the deepest running back room that we've ever had. I agree. They say that wide receiver core, same thing. Deepest that they've had in a long time. The defense has veteran players and guys that have been around for a long time. Guys that have come back with the goal of doing something special at Georgia Tech. All the pieces, I think, have just fallen in line for this team to be special this upcoming year. I mean, during the course of this year. And I think things have set up really nicely for them the rest of the way. This is an opportunity to go out on the road and beat a Duke team that people like, but I don't think they beat in Georgia Tech. It feels special. Especially because, I mean, we're having people have conversations about Haynes King being in the Heisman race. Guys, I mean, at a certain point, we got to start taking that seriously. Completion percentage is always high. He's always running the ball. He's won the games on his schedule. If he continues to win all the games on his schedule, let's say he beats, I mean, the problem is they don't have anybody left on their schedule until Georgia that is much of a game where people are going to be watching. I think people like watching Haynes King, but there's no more massive matchups on their schedule, unfortunately. Until they get to that Georgia game where I think people are going to be watching. A Friday night inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, clean, old-fashioned hates, a chance to really get some revenge and kind of bounce back from that loss last year that everybody talked about. That crazy 8-overtime game in Athens. I am disappointed that the game is not inside of Bobby Dodd Stadium, which I really think is one of the best environments. Well, I think it's one of the best settings in the sport. It's so pretty. You've got the skyline and everything like that. The weather seems to always be good. It's like a more intimate stadium, and it feels so good to be in there. Oldest stadium in FBS, by the way. So, for that reason, I think all those reasons, I think Georgia Tech is going to get the win. Haynes King, the Heisman, you got to talk about it. There's potential there. He needs to be getting invites to New York if he continues to win. If he brings a top, here's the deal. If they win out, if they beat Georgia, they're going to be a top 8, top 7, top 6 team. Right? You beat Georgia. I think that all the guys that people thought would be the main Heisman contenders have all kind of fallen off a little bit, at least from the start of the year. The Garrett Nussmeyers, in that group, the Arch Mannings, Cade Klubniks, you're getting the Dante Moores, you're getting the Fernando Mendoza. Those guys are good. They're playing well. They've got some major games on their schedule as well. I don't know if Mendoza can get it done against somebody else in the Big Ten. That Oregon win was huge. But there's a chance. There is a chance for Haynes King to win the Heisman this year. I don't know if I'm putting my money on it yet. I think the Heisman, a lot of it's about moments. There's not a lot of moments left on the schedule. But if you can beat Georgia at the end of the year, go undefeated into the college football playoff, maybe you beat Miami in the ACC title game, and that honestly might be the difference because Carson Beck is playing really well as well this year, especially in the ACC. If you can beat Carson Beck one-on-one, as it is in college football, one-on-one, Haynes King might be winning that Heisman, baby, which would be absolutely insane. So that's what I'm kind of rooting for there. Georgia Tech gets a win over Duke on the road in a war. It's going to be close. But too much magic, too much Haynes King. They're going to get a win. All right, before we go, we're going to do a Lanyap segment. I mentioned what this is kind of all about. It's going to just be some extra ancillary stuff that I think is also important, but maybe is not the biggest or the top two biggest stories of the day. And it's a shame because this is a big deal. Brad Guzan, the longtime goalkeeper for Atlanta United, has decided to retire at the end of this season. It has not been a good year for Atlanta United. It's been a tough year for Brad Guzan as well because he's been benched at times and has not played at times. He's 41 years old. His coach confirming yesterday, and we were there, I was there, that he will start in that final game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday. It's really sad because, they picked, it stinks because he deserves so much. He's done so much for this city. Over 300 starts. He has been a staple in the community. Of course, he won that MLS Cup title back in 2018. Has been the captain for a long, long time. Who knows where this franchise would be? It feels like he is synonymous with the Five Stripes. He feels like he's synonymous with Atlanta United. There's been people that have come and gone over the course over the last, in the last 10 years since they won that title, or at least not, I said 10 years. Since they won that title in 2018. People have come and gone, all the different players. Miggy's back now, but all the different players that have come and gone, guys that have gone out and been and tried to continue to grow and find a new spot, and people have come and gone. Brad Guzan has always been that staple, that person that you could always recognize was going to be there. He's had some incredible moments throughout his career. Played for the U.S. national team, played overseas, came to MLS once, went back overseas, came back here, has been with Atlanta United. The guy's been a superstar for a long time, a big name, and one of the more recognizable names in the entire sport when it comes to U.S. soccer. And he's also a nice guy, man. I'll tell you this. When we interviewed him at the beginning of this year, I played goalie in college, or it's not in college, in high school. I really enjoyed playing goalie, and when you meet these guys, right, it's hard to be like, yo, let me tell you about my athletic prowess back in the Gap. But the PR staff for Atlanta United, they pointed out to Brad that I played high school goalie because they had seen me played in the Atlanta United media match over the course of the last couple of years. And I'm so thankful for Brad because he could have been like, yeah, okay, whatever, who cares? He could have been. He was so nice about it. Asking me questions, where I played, how I played, He said he was gonna try. Look, he said it must be pretty good. So I appreciate Brad for that. I really, really do. I appreciate Brad for everything he's done for this community, this area, always giving back. An interesting player, always there. Brad Guzan will be retiring on Saturday. I think it's a shame that it is on Saturday because of what an incredible weekend of college sports it's going to be. I think, but it's going to be cool. It's going to be awesome. Kickoff from inside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium this weekend on Saturday. Our last chance to see Brad Guzan in goal for Atlanta United. There's a lot of question marks about what that team's going to look like going forward. What happens to the manager as this team is trying to avoid finishing with the worst record in MLS this year? What happens with him? Where does this roster kind of go from here? Who starts playing goalie full time? A lot of question marks. A lot of things they're trying to figure out. But it'll be interesting for sure. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what the future is for this team, this club, who spends all the money in the world to try and be successful. I think that people in Atlanta are always looking for a winner, and they have a chance to be one. Just got to make all the right moves going forward. But congratulations to Brad Guzan, an incredible career. I'm excited to see what's next for him. I asked him, I was like, what's next? Well, I didn't ask him. Somebody asked him. What's next? He said he didn't really know, but he's trying to get into my space now, the media space. I mean, so you see how those tables turn, right? I played goalie, high school, XYZ, and then I've been in the media field, right? He's trying to do the opposite thing. You do a professional soccer player. I mean, he did do the FIFA Club World Cup, but have you ever anchored Team 1-1 on a Friday night on 11 Alive? Brad, I'd like to see you do some highlights. Want some high school kids. All right, let's leave it at that. It is Friday. I am anchoring Team 1-1 tonight, our high school show here in town, so I need to start prepping for that. But thank you guys so much for watching today's episode, the first episode of the Reggie Chatman Show. Like I said, I'm really, really excited to be doing this show. As you can see, I've got the studio kind of set up here. I know I know this is a little bit crooked. I'll get that fixed. That'll be fixed at some point. But yeah, like I said, I'm really excited to be doing the show, man. Just an opportunity to be able to talk about what's important, grow the brand, let people know what's been going on, introduce some new people, do some interviews. A new challenge for myself to be able to try and, see if I can kind of implement myself more in the city of Atlanta. I'm really excited about it, man. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment. Follow me on Instagram, @Reggie Chatman. All different ways that you can get the show. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit all that stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow, Saturday. These games this weekend are way too big for me not to talk about it. So Georgia taking on Ole Miss at 3:30, Georgia Tech at noon. Once both those games go off, I will be shooting a podcast episode to talk about both those games. Just kind of an instant reaction show. And that'll go up right here on the YouTube account. And we'll go from there. Make sure you guys follow along. I'll see you guys tomorrow.